I just realized I didn't put this in my list, but I got pwned again this week. I shouldn't laugh, but just given what I do. Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Plex quickly. And also, before I begin, last week, the camera cut out. And then we struggled a little bit and we got it back. And then I had it happen several other times in a couple of different Zoom meetings. Now, I have done the one thing that we all know fixes everything, which is restarted my computer by virtue of Windows automatically doing that for me because of updates or something. So hopefully it's okay. But if we do cut out today, I'm going to try and remember where that setting is someone raised last week. I'm going to stop it and start it. Anyway, audio remains, so you'll hear me cursing not having a camera. Plex, data breach. Not the old one. When was the old one? Because there's two Plex breaches now. Now, I was in the first one. I was one of the several dozen entries that I have in Have I Been Pwned. Plex, 8th of Feb 2016. Now, that's when I loaded it. The breach itself was July 2015. So they managed to go a decade without another breach. Here's the notice I got the other day, and I've had many other people send this to me. Dear Plex user, we have recently experienced a security incident that may potentially involve your Plex account information. We believe the actual impact of this incident is limited. However, action is required from you to ensure your account remains secure. Unauthorized third party, access limited subset of customer data. They have not blamed a third party service. There's a third party threat actor, I guess, that's access things. G'day, Aaron, Richard, thank you for joining. Any account passwords that may have been accessed were securely hashed in accordance with best practices, meaning they cannot be read by a third party. But see, this is what I always find I have a reasonable grasp on hashing algorithms. And if you're listening to me, you probably do too, more than the average person. But this is what I always find contradictory. I'll read the whole paragraph, only 2 sentences. Any account password that may have been accessed, I missed a letter. Any account passwords that may have been accessed were securely hashed in accordance with best practices, meaning they cannot be read by a third party. Out of an abundance of caution, we recommend you immediately reset your password. And it's like, well, which one is it? Is it securely stored and it's secure, or you should go and reset it? Now, what we can derive from that is, let's say it's a strong hashing algorithm as bcrypt with a big work factor. It is possible to crack a password if you can calculate them fast enough, which is harder to do with bcrypt and a big work factor, and you've got a reasonable candidate list. If your password is a randomly generated one, generated by one password as mine is, then you're probably fine. I changed it anyway. But that's the nuance that gets lost, and I just find it contradictory. I think, feel free to argue with me, but I think that it is really important in any sort of disclosure message to be crystal clear and unambiguous. And it's not just Plex. We say this all the time. I think saying your password is secure and cannot be read by a third party, but change it anyway, is contradictory messaging. So, g'day, Joe. Joe, I saw your comment on that LinkedIn thread before as well. I'll talk about that in a moment. Let me do a sponsor thing first. So, malware bites. Malware bites. Browser guard blocks phishing, ads, scams, and trackers for safer browsing. Now, if the folks here recall, Malware Bytes very timely came on as a sponsor after I got phished, as I was jet lagged, waking up early in London, thinking that MailChimp email I got about my account being hit with the ban hammer was real. Phishing my username, my password, phishing my two-factor OTP. Now, that was a very timely opportunity, I think, for Malware Bytes. So kudos for them, or to them rather, for seeing the opportunity there to be a sponsor on my blog, promoting a product that gives web protection for you and your family, scam attack and malware defense. Yeah, this is the key. Browser Guard flags malicious websites and credit card skimmers that steal your info or send you viruses. Being able to get on the front foot and identify a scammy website. Now, keep in mind as well, so the Google Chrome did not pick up that website as being malicious. Whatever ISP I was proxied out through by virtue of the hotel I was staying in certainly didn't pick it up. Those defenses were insufficient. So Malwarebytes does definitely have a role to play there. So yeah, big thanks to them for sponsoring my blog this week and hopefully for helping people not be me. And I just see my video freeze. Look at that, it's done it again. I think it's something to do with the Elgato cam link, because I can see it already frozen on OBS. So let's troubleshoot this together. Was it a right click, disable? How in OBS, someone literally figured this out. Video capture device, activate, deactivate. Oh, activate. There, oh, we're back. All right. Okay, so now I've got to figure out what to do with this cam link. It must be the cam link. I had a bit of a look on Elgato. I was like, I wonder if there's a new one that's better. And I don't know that there is. But I'll figure out something to do with that. We'll work it out. All right, let's talk very briefly. Joe's just touched on this in the chat here. I made a LinkedIn post yesterday. Now, this is almost like a learning experience. I was a teachable moment that I was having with Ari, who's almost 16, and he's doing business and accounting and things at school. And I was explaining how for Have I Been Pwned, we really have two ways of, let's say, collecting money. Now, one is that we obviously have, go to the website, put your credit card in, and you get access to services. And this is a little bit like the Netflix, Spotify kind of model, where there is a service and you pay for it, and then it recurs at either a monthly or an annual basis or whatever you want. And until you pay with the credit card, you don't get the service. When it's due to renew, if the payment can't be made, well, you don't have a service. I love this model. And the reason I love this model is that we don't have to do anything. It's like, there it is. You can go and use it. If you don't pay for it, it doesn't work, which is really good incentive to pay for it, assuming it's a service that you actually need. Now that's great. Then there's the other model, which is there are services which we invoice our customers for. Now, really obvious ones for that is, let's say 1Password, they've got product placement. So we send 1Password an invoice. And we have payment terms, which I think we normally default to about 28 days. Charlotte looks after all that. I don't like the details. So they got 28 days to pay the invoice. And then if they, so what will happen? Let's say their invoice is due on the 1st of October. So they will get an email on the 1st of October saying, here's your invoice, and this is, it's usually for the month in advance. You got to pay it by the 29th of October. Now, on the 29th of October, if we haven't received payment into the bank account, reconciled it in Xero, which is the accounting product we use, it is now overdue. So they get another reminder. And I think we've got it configured to send a total of about 3 reminders, like 1 week apart. We don't have anything in there that automatically cuts off service. It doesn't like automatically remove the 1Password logo, for example. So what will happen is they'll get their 3 reminders, and eventually Charlotte will be doing the accounts, and she's like, wow, this invoice is really, really overdue. Now we've got to start manually sending emails and asking for a contact. And this happens occasionally. The organizations that fall into the category that we invoice are 1Password. We've got product placement from TrueU, for example, here in Oz for identity protection, Aura in the US. And we have a handful of organizations that have enterprise-grade access to Have I Been Pwned. Things like MSPs and cybersecurity organizations that have access to APIs dedicated for large-scale organizational usage. I've written before about things like, we have a model that does k-anonymity searches for email addresses. So for example, a cybersecurity company could say, we're monitoring individual email addresses. We're going to search by hash prefix, get the full suffix. You guys know k-anonymity. Now, we don't have anything that automatically cuts anyone off. And I guess we generate invoices. There is, let's say for argument's sake, 5% of them at some point in time we have to chase and go, guys, like you're 2 months overdue. Can you please make good on your invoices? let's say 5% of those then get to the point where we're just struggling to get a response, or we're struggling to get payment. And then I can think of some cases, not the example I'm going to talk about today, where we end up just cutting off service. Now, very, very, very rarely we get to the point, Stefan's slacking me, very, very rarely we get to the point where we just cannot get a response and we cannot get payment for services that we have already provided. Stefan, stop it. Let me mute that. And this happened with Gradient Cyber. Now, I'm mentioning this because I did put a public LinkedIn post, and I want to sort of qualify a couple of things here. And Joe obviously saw that post, as did a bunch of other people. But without going into all the detail, I'd said in the post the oldest invoice was like 500 something days overdue. There were multiple invoices overdue. We tried over and over and over again via the generic accounting email address, which invoices had been sent to for a period of years, to the contact we had that their subscription service had ended quite some time ago. So it's not like we could just cut it off and someone would reach out. I tried multiple other channels, basically tried every reasonable means of getting in touch with them via published addresses and things like this, and just couldn't get there, could not get a response. So I put a post on LinkedIn yesterday and said, look, does anyone have a contact? There's really overdue bills. I've exhausted all reasonable avenues. And that obviously got quite a bit of attention based on the comments that were left. And as these things are wont to do, it got the attention of the right person. So someone from Gradient did get in touch. Now, to cut to the chase, they have fixed this, and they've fixed it very quickly, and they've acted in exactly the way that I had hoped that post would cause them to do. I end up deleting that post because it just had a whole bunch of comments in there that were now really no longer relevant because they'd made good. And I put out a new post, and I'm just looking at the comments from this. Put out a new post this morning, and I made it pretty high level, pretty generic, and said, thanks everyone for helping me find a contact. Folks there acted really, really promptly. CEO James Hamilton was great. He did it basically exactly what I was hoping, which is fantastic. Now, it was only after I'd sort of deliberately didn't speculate or explain what had happened because they hadn't told me. I was thinking in the back of my head, obviously there's something internal that just hasn't routed the invoices to the right place, and for other reasons I still don't know. The other means of contact didn't work. After I posted that, I saw that James had left a comment on the original post, and I thought I'd read that because I thought it was a good post from him. It was very reasonable. He said, all Troy and I corresponded, and part of the reason I'm reading this is I've deleted, as I said, deleted the post, which means all the comments have been deleted as well. But I did save a copy of this. Troy and I corresponded last night. His COO, don't know if he's aware, but it's also my wife. We're a very small company. Sent me all the related correspondence. Thank you, Charlotte. This was clearly a transition and communication issue with the former finance employee of our company. So, obviously something internal. Now, just to be clear, before I read the rest of James' email, there is no way I'm ever posting a message like that unless I am 100% certain that all the information there is correct. And inevitably it was, and that issue was internal for them. I believe all was resolved between us last night. Yep, and it was. And the outstanding balance of $7,500 was paid this morning. Now, I didn't put a price on there. I'm not entirely sure why he did. Maybe it just illustrates that it wasn't a huge amount, certainly not to them. That's American dollars as well. So that's more than 10,000 Australian dollars. That's significant for us. It is Charlotte and I, and we have Stefan. Like, we are very small, and we have increasing overheads as well. So we do rely on companies paying their bills. Please know that we're very committed to our vendor and other partnerships, partner relationships. If Aussies and Texans can't solve their differences, who can? James Hamilton, CEO, Gradient Cyber. So, bottom line is, I'm really happy with the way they dealt that. I get what it's like when there's a big company. just this little comments just come in as I saw that, which was like, well played, good result sort of thing. I understand what it's like in a big company. I spent 14 years in Pfizer, the amount of different people that communications has to go through. And then people do leave and they go on to different things. Okay, yeah, this was a DM, but I think I can read this. Well done on your public post with the company that was not paying. Yeah, well, and look, again, well done to Gradient Cyber as well. They deserve kudos because they handled it in exactly the right way once it got to the right people. Joe, remarkably less combative than his first comment. Yeah, I can't remember exactly what it was, but yeah, there was an initial comment from the CEO that, to use Joe's term, was combative. I think he didn't understand the context at that time, and it was probably a knee-jerk reaction. Now, clearly, once he actually got the background and understood what was going on, and I would assume that he's a very busy guy across a lot of stuff. So, let's give him a pass on that. But again, it's worked out well. I did notice one person had replied to him on that comment I just read, which said, well done, sir, which is, yep, well done. And the subsequent post that I have made here is, that's the one you commented on, Joe. Joe said, excuse me, Joe said that's probably a bit more forgiving than you needed to be, but glad it's all sorted. Well, there was only one objective. There really was. We would like to be paid for the services we provided. And that was the sole objective. That has been reached. Everybody is happy. Let's move on to new stuff. Speaking of which, I was trying to find, like, how many years I've been doing this for. We're at 460 something. So I've done this for almost 10 years, every single week, this video. And in years gone by, and I'll think about, what am I going to talk about today? And I'd go back through my tweet history because most of the stuff that was relevant or interesting is in there. And as I did that, I found a combination of just not much stuff on my tweet history lately because it's just a weird place. That's a weird place. Blue Sky's a weird place, and Mastodon's a weird place. And then, of course, since the assassination situation with Charlie yesterday, you go into any of these places and, oh my God, it's just, I just don't want to be on social media for a while. Holy crap. I'm not even going to get into that. It's just so many levels of mess. Anywho, the point is, I had to scrounge around a bit to figure out content, but I realized I barely have a moment where I'm not doing anything. Pretty much anything somehow in the realm of work related, whether it's have I been Pwned or IoT stuff or 3D printing stuff or whatever. So my days are full. And I realized one of the things we've been doing this week, and I just put a little update on it, is Elle, my 13-year-old daughter, and I've finished building the Prusa Core 1. Now, there's a bit of a history, there's a bit of a thread there on X where I've put some tweets with the progress, but I got into 3D printing when was it? Started 2001, wasn't it? And at the prompting of a good childhood friend of mine, I got the kit. I got the kit where you build the printer yourself. So you can buy it all fully assembled, or you can buy the kit. And if you've ever liked doing Lego, and if you're here listening to me, you probably might swap a person who's like, yeah, I like doing Lego. It's good fun. If you ever like doing Lego, building a Prusa 3D printer from a kit is awesome. It's so much fun because it's actually functional. You're building a machine which is then going to make other things. One of the cool things about it is a lot of the parts on the printer are 3D printed. So you're building a 3D printer that can then print parts of a new 3D printer, which makes you wonder, how did they get the printed parts in the first one? Maybe they made them by a CNC machine or something. I don't know. But anyway, you get to build the whole thing. And it's everything from gazillions of screws through to circuit boards and cables and rods and bearings, and eventually calibration and doing your prints, which is pretty cool. So we went through that process, and this mate of mine, he'd said, build the kit. It's a little bit cheaper as well, which is a bonus. But the big thing is that you will understand more about how it works. And then when you have to maintain it and troubleshoot it later on, you've got a head start. So we did that. So we built the Mark III, and then later on we bought a Mark IV kit, and we built the Mark IV, and later on we upgraded the Mark IV to a Mark IV-S, and just now we have upgraded the Mark IV-S to the Prusa Core 1, which is a massive step forward in build quality. If you're into this sort of thing, and even if you just have a look at the images, I'll drop this in the threads actually, in the chat. We'll go here to 3D printers. Let me just get the link, and then you can sort of see what we're dealing with. Now, if you have a look at that top row, we've got the original Prusa Mark IV-S, which is effectively the same look and feel of everything else. But then you look on the very left-hand side, and we've got the Prusa Core 1, which is now, not only is it inside an enclosure, but 3D printer, obviously based on the name, works in 3 dimensions. And if we look at that original Mark IV-S, which looks fairly exposed, we've got the print head moves left and right, which is X. The whole bed moves backwards and forwards, which is Y, and then the entire print head moves up and down for the Z axis. And the fundamental change with this Core 1 is the print head doesn't move in the Z axis, it stays at the top. And the bed, oh, incidentally, if you're American and listening to this, that's a Z. But I'm saying Z. So the bed moves up and down on the Z axis. The bed does not move X or Y, depending on which way you're looking. That's just the print head that does that now. So effectively before, the bed only moved in Y, now the bed only moves in Z. And I imagine, I've probably got to read more about this, one of the big reasons for that, if you imagine you've got this print bed and something is building up on top of it and it's continually shaking like this as it moves, it's not good for stability. So now it only moves vertically, and it only moves vertically after the entire layer is printed. So much less movement, and then moving in a dimension that isn't wobbling something on the top of it. It's in an enclosure as well, so immediately the thing on nose is way, way, way quieter, which is going to be a really positive thing. It's just super cool to look at. Now we're doing, you probably can't hear it, but I can hear the angle grinder in the background because we're still doing renovations. And as part of that, the place the 3D printer goes between the kids' rooms, where I guess reviving, giving a little bit of extra life. And this is going to be a really nice centerpiece to sit there and actually look cool and look kind of professional too. So that's kind of cool. So that's going to go in there. Now, per the tweet thread, it is now physically constructed. We've turned it on. There's a lot of calibration involved. And unfortunately, right now, I'm stuck on the Y-axis calibration. So it powers up, which is great. Incidentally, there's so many parts to this, and there's so much effort that when you get to the point of turning it on, you're like, there's no way this is going to work. There's no way this thing is going to turn on and just work. But it did turn on. But for some reason, the calibration is not happy. And I'm playing around with tensioning Y-axis belts, and there's a little, you got to get the belts the right tension. And they have a little website where it listens to the microphone and listens to the frequency when you tweak the belt. And it comes back to tell you whether or not the belt tension is right based on the frequency when you zing it with your finger. Belt tension's perfect, movement looks perfect. I don't know what's wrong. What I do know is that Prusa are exceptionally good with their support. And even as I look at the website now, I was going to put that in the chat. I did put it in the chat. As I look at the website now, there is a little chat box down the bottom. And I can go in there. Do I have a chat there already? I do. Oh, wow. It's actually kept my chat from last time, has it? How long ago was that? What was my problem then? Oh, that's pretty cool. All right. Well, anyway, I know that I can go into the chat when I have the time to sit there in front of the printer and say, this is my problem, and a real human on the other end will help me solve it very quickly. So I'm super, super excited about getting that going. And I think maybe after I do this video, I might just open up the chat on the iPad, go and sit down there, try and get it working, and then I'll share some results. All right, let's look at the comments here. Aaron, pretty choked up at recent events. It's always nice to get away with your live streams. I'm sure, yeah. It's just wild, isn't it? Like, it's even before yesterday, the whole situation is just in the US and politics, and it's just it's hard not to watch to some extent. And I guess as an Aussie, you get to sit here on the other side of the world and just see the feed. And of course, we do go to the US a lot. We're last there. In fact, we're last there bang on 1 year ago. So I feel like we have a better than average understanding of what it's like over there. But oh man, just watching it is I think maybe sad is the right word. Just the divisiveness and the amount of rhetoric. And then of course, depending on which social platform you go to, you get divisiveness and rhetoric from a different side of politics. I just can't think of anywhere else in the Western world, and we travel a lot. I can't think of anywhere else where an otherwise united country is so clearly divided on very polar opposites and is so passionate about it to the extent we see there. It's wild. And I wonder, I was saying Charlotte last night, I wonder if we'll look back at this in 30 years. How will we remember this time? Will everything have maybe calmed down and there'll be more unity and everything else? Or will we look back at it? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. We're all speculating here. James says, you can move a print head much faster than a whole bed with something potentially delicate on it. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. Stephen, I was impressed with how little background noise gets into streams, Zoom calls these days. Yeah, it's one of the reasons. I mean, I guess it depends on your setup too. I mean, I've got a nice mic with a big fluffy thing on it here as well, and a good amp and all the rest of it. And even when I do like interviews and things, someone will go, "Aren't you going to put your headphones on?" So, man, I don't even have headphones. Did one a couple of days ago. I think the guy was a bit pissed I didn't have headphones. He's like, I'm going to hear it back. It's like, you're not going to. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Unless you're really, really aiming for a ridiculous level of sound quality. So I suspect that comment was due to the fact that you cannot hear the freaking angle grinder going on in the background. This will later lead us into the IoT discussion too, because as stuff is being done in the house, there's more IoT. Jane says, people sometimes forget to check extrusion rate calibration and shrink calibration. There's a lot that you can calibrate on a printer. And then it's not just the printer, it's, well, what about the filament? And then what about the humidity? And then what about the particular model you're printing? And then do you set those settings on the, like it is a massive rabbit hole you can go down onto. I do find that the Prusas have been very good straight out of the box without much configuration. And that Mark IV got a really nice Z-index bed leveling automation process that we had to do manually with the 3 before. So I think in terms of being able to reliably print without actually giving it much thought, they're amazing. They're totally amazing. And I have spent time with Prusa in Prague as well. I hung out with Joseph there. He's Joseph Prusa. They named the company after him. And a super awesome guy, really, really nice guy. Just very, very cool. You don't normally think of the Czech Republic as being, I don't know, like how many things can you think of that come from the Czech Republic? So to be one of the absolute leaders in 3D printing technology is just a super cool thing for them. Joe says it's getting pretty divided here in the UK too. Yeah, I've seen the news. I wish we could all focus on common ground rather than differences. We're all human and all deserve respect. That is reasonable. I think that's a, yeah. You just get to the point. It's like, what can you say or do? James says, people didn't even hear my dog barking in the next room one time. Yeah, good audio gear and good camera gear. It just makes a massive difference. I think it was actually on that meeting where the guy was like, wear your headphones the other day, where I'll turn the camera on and he's like, wow, nice backdrop. So yeah, it's real, right? Like it's, as I move around, the camera focus changes and just little things like that. James is a sucker for punishment, brought an Ender 3 V2. I had to do a ton to get it perfect. I've not used an Ender before. I did note when I was at the Australian school last week, and I spoke about this in last week's video, they had a heap of 3D printers there, and they're pretty much all Enders. They had a Bamboo as well, no Prusa. So, yeah, it's I won't get into my opinions on that. We'll move on. Pwned passwords passes 16 billion monthly requests. It's probably more than that now because I tweeted that more than a week ago. What are we up to now? So as a quick recap, while I pull up the Cloudflare stats, this is 16 billion times in 30 days. It's not even a month, if you look at it that way. Yeah, it's a rolling 30 days. 16 billion times every 30 days that API to check whether a password's been seen before is called. Let me look back into this. I'm going to access the Cloudflare things again. And what's particularly cool for that is that that's 16 billion opportunities that we have each month. Really more than that, because of those 16 billion requests, a bunch of those are people just downloading everything, storing it locally, and then using that as a local repository for their own application. So I don't know the total amount. Let's find, Cloudflare's got a warning. Your Salesforce case data has been impacted by a recent security incident. Yeah, we know that. We've shared that. That was unfortunate. Don't think any real impact on us. It just seems like if you had raised tickets and you had put secrets in your tickets, don't put secrets in your tickets. If you had done that, then that may have been exposed. Let's have a look here at our analytics and logs in Cloudflare. Yesterday we did 525.73 million requests in one day for Pwned passwords. Our rolling 30 days is now 16.27 billion. So it's pretty much the same as a week ago when I posted it. Now, for the most part, we don't even know who's using this because there's no auth. There's certainly no API keys. It's like, here's the endpoints, go your hardest. The only way we know who's actually using it is if someone makes asynchronous client-side requests to the API. So for example, they've got a website and there's a password input box and they use JavaScript such that when the password is entered, it calls off asynchronously to our service and we get a referrer header. So I am happy talking about the websites that are sending referrer headers. Now here is the top, let's do the top 15. And I will just exclude a couple here because one of them is like no referrer header and one of them is api.pwnedpasswords.com. Not sure why that's there in a referrer header. Number one, by a fairly significant margin, 8 million requests, is tradingview.com, which I believe, from memory, is a share trading platform. What's on TradingView? Look first, then leap. The best trades require research, then commitment. Now, it's great. This is exactly the sort of website you would hope is taking password security seriously. So that's number one. Number two, at about half that number, 4.24 million. Actually, let's have a little sneaky look here. If I go onto the sign-in page at tradingview.com and I open the DevTools, and let's sign in with email, and let's just start typing the password. Is it hitting our API? Maybe it's just let's go to the sign up instead, because obviously there's a client-side request coming from TradingView. We'll sign up with email. Let's start typing in the password and we'll see. There we go. All right, so if you go to tradingview.com, you go to sign up, and then as you start typing the password, you will see requests to api.pwnedpasswords.com. Now that's why we have more than 8 million requests in the last month, because every keystroke is sending a request to us, which is cool. I like that. All right, so number one, TradingView. Number two, opera.com. That's at 4.2 million. That's about half that. Number three, Telstra.com. Telstra is our biggest telco down here in Australia. After that, we have onepassword.com. Now, obviously, that would be in a web interface implementation if we're getting referrer headers like that. The next one is gc.com. That's Game Changers. Stream your games, score the action. After that, we've got androidplatform.net, zipcar.com, Rushbet, the BBC, an IN subdomain of tradingview.com. So that really should roll up and take TradingView to about 9 million requests. Ramp.com, huggingface.co, Wealthsimple, LastPass, and another Subdomain of TradingView. This one, are you? I guess that's what happens when you put stuff out there for free and let anyone use it. See the comments here. Aaron says, good beer comes from Czech Republic. Now, what I do know about beer in Czech Republic is that they are apparently the largest beer drinking nation in the world by a fairly significant margin. When we were there, there's all these, oh, it's very touristy. So all these places you can bathe in beer. They literally have tubs where you jump into the tub and they fill it with beer, and then they have a beer tap next to it, and you just keep topping your beer up, and you drink that out of the glass, not out of the bath, and you lay in beer. And that was fun. So I was pretty happy about that. Marek says, Czechs known, well, what are Czechs known for? Skoda. I know it's not a McLaren, but mine has served me well. And I see the comment further down from Aaron saying, yeah, I believe VW do actually now own Skoda. But okay, that's fair enough. I had not thought of Skoda. It's not high on my list of, I guess, memorable brands. James says, Google is marketing AI to students. Will we eventually compare it to marketing cigarettes to kids? No. No way. Like, I know where you're going with that, but I mean, no lung cancer is a good start with AI. When I was doing all those talks at the school last week, AI was a constant thread that kept coming up. And my view of AI is almost a little bit like my view of American politics, where I think that there are extreme views each way and the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. Probably apply that to everything. It is clearly not going to replace everything. I don't think it's going to Skynet us and we're going to be dealing with the robots taking over. But I also don't think that it is the answer to everything. I also don't think it's terrible in every way. I had someone get very upset with me on, it was either Mastodon or Blue Sky. It's where the people who are upset on Twitter went, and then they get upset in the other place. Very upset that I was using AI to help us design the challenge coin for Have I Been Pwned. And I was trying to understand why, in particular, they were upset. Were they upset that we had potentially taken the job away from a human? And they use that term AI slop. You've all heard it. And I find it a very derogatory term. I find it intentionally derogatory because it seems like no matter what the quality of the output is, slop is used as a way to denigrate it simply by virtue of being AI. And there's a lot of AI generated stuff that is very, very cool. I think I'd sort of made the point, and he was replying to a message that I'd posted many, many months ago. So why he dug it, I don't know if he was just going through, just finding anything that was a post about AI and just ranting at the sky. But he'd sort of said AI slop, and I was like, look, we used this to help us iterate on a design quickly. So Charlotte and I literally sit here and we put in prompts and we see how it's looking and we iterate very, very quickly. And of course we do it for free. And then we got to the point where it was refined enough that we went to a challenge coin company and we gave it to a human, and they did an absolute shit job. So I was like saying to the guy, it's like, look at this human generated slop. He's like, oh, no, that's not slop because it's human. It's like, well, anyway, a lot of the discussion at the schools around AI was a combination of things. So one was, as you're thinking about careers, what are careers that may not exist or may not be good choices as a result of AI? And the example I gave, I was literally watching a 60-minute story about this whilst I was on the treadmill, just before I did one of these talks. There was a voiceover artist, and this lady would be the voiceover for advertisements. So, you're watching an ad on TV and it's about, I don't know, peanuts or whatever it is. And there's a voice in the background, and this was this lady's job. And she was saying she's now finding it really hard to get work because of AI. I would argue that being a voiceover artist is not a good career choice in the emerging era of AI. I think a lot of graphic design work, a lot of art-based work can at least in part be filled by that AI. But I'd also argue that, let's say with code, something more close to all our hearts, I'm using AI really extensively now in code. I'm writing more code than ever as a result of doing that. And I'll give you a really good example. We use TypeScript on Have I Been Pwned, for basically anywhere we have JavaScript. So TypeScript then compiles down to JavaScript. Now we're using TypeScript as part of a reseller portal, which I've discussed many times before. And we found a bug the other day where basically if you went through a series of processes, when you clicked on the button to generate a quote, it was generating 2 quotes. And I looked at the dev tools and the button click was firing twice. So clearly there's been 2 events attached to the button click. Now I know this without AI because I've been doing this for 30 years, but it wasn't immediately clear to me why it was happening or how to fix it. So I copy 500 lines of TypeScript, drop it into ChatGPT, and I'm like, we're getting 2 button clicks, why is it happening? And it's like, here's your problem, here's the fix. It's like, sweet, that just saved me. It's potentially saved me an hour of mucking around. And I can read that code and I can understand it and I can paste it in there and it works. And then I go on to do something useful, like complaining about AI on the internet, arguing about it. So a lot of the discussion with the kids was, what are the jobs where AI is actually going to help you be even better at it, but is not likely to completely replace you? And I think this is the case with software. I think we'll see a lot of jobs replaced by AI, but we'll also see a lot of people be much more productive and much more effective if they learn how to harness it. So that's my view on that, James. You may disagree. How's it going here? James, also got a Plex email. They say the passwords are hashed. Yep, yeah, covered that. Says nothing about salt. No, but they did phrase it. I've still got the message here. Something about it being modern. Any passwords that may have been accessed were securely hashed, not insecurely hashed. So you would assume that in this day and age, not only is it salted, but it's going to be an adaptive hashing algorithm with a high work factor. I think that's a reasonable assumption. I wrote a blog post probably about a decade ago saying that I think organizations should actually state what their hashing algorithm is. And I stand by that. Stephen says, we're all expecting another Plex email in 10 years' time. Keep the pattern going. Also says, having seen the code that Copilot and other LLMs write, we're safe for a while as an engineer, but does make me worry non-tech people not realizing what some of the code does. And I think that's the issue. And I agree with you. I was using Copilot in Visual Studio Code the other day. And I'm trying to remember exactly what I was doing, but it was something like I was wanting to standardize on either using RGB or hex for colors in CSS. Oh, that's what I was doing. I was trying to create an email signature, which failed dramatically, not due to AI, but because Outlook is just and I was there in Copilot in Visual Studio Code and saying, please convert all of the hex to RGB or something equivalent. And it just totally cocked it up. However, when you look at the rate of change, you can also see that this is not an insurmountable problem. And I suspect we'll be having this discussion like 6 months from now, and we'll be going, geez, remember how Copilot wasn't great in like September 2025? And now it's beginning of 2026 and it just nails it every time. One of the questions that's coming up a lot is, are we going to see more data breaches as a result of AI? AI slop, vibe coding. Are we going to see more vulnerabilities built that lead to data breaches? And my response to that is very much the same as self-driving cars, where people are like, are we going to see more accidents as a result of self-driving cars? And the response is simply this. Have you seen how humans drive? Right? Have you seen people running red lights, inappropriate speed, on their phones? The amount of dumb shit humans do, the bar for self-driving cars to be safer than humans is very low. And I would argue that the bar for AI to be better than human software developers is also very low. I would again argue that I think AI is going to do a better job of security than humans. Just in the software development capacity, let alone all the dynamic analysis and everything else. And if we're not there already, we're going to be there very, very, very soon. There's absolutely no doubt about that. Steven says, need to teach adults as well. I've heard some worrying stuff from older generations, 60 plus, who think everything written on Facebook must be true. That's not even an AI problem. We've had that problem for 30 years of internet. That's our problem. Aaron says, in my opinion, AI is a usual tool, but you need to conduct it and dig with recent answers, steer the answers you get. AI is the new flavor of outsourcing your job. Used to be the third world countries. Now it's particularly AI. Well, I understand what you're saying. Outsourcing to low-cost markets also has its problems. And again, I think the reasonable way of looking at this is to compare the two, not to look at AI and go in isolation, is this thing doing a really good job? It's like, what are our options? If I'm outsourcing to a low-cost market and I'm possibly getting inexperienced people, and then there's language barriers and things like that. We have that all the time at Pfizer. Trying to like give requirements to the Chinese outsourcing company, no matter how good a developer they are, if there's a language barrier, it's a lot of friction. So I'm more bullish than not about the possibilities for AI. James says, you're right. I've had to tell some adults, that's AI, right? But hey, I've had some time. When I saw that Charlie Kirk video yesterday, I assume everyone has seen it now because you can't not see it. I had to go, is this AI? Now, like, tragically, it was not AI, but we're at the point now, I don't know if the real stuff is AI, and I don't know if the AI stuff is real. It's like when I get emails from my bank. I don't know if that's a phishing email that looks like my bank, or I don't know if that's my bank looking like a phishing email. I have no idea. It is hard to know what's real and what's not. And then you get politicians, and particularly in one particular company, saying that everything in the news is fake. So it's like, I don't know. As James says, stopped assuming. It's made an ass out of me too often. Zia says, my biggest annoyance with Copilot is the constant replies that always start with, you're right, and similar lines. I wonder how much you can game that. Your code sucks. You're right. Joe says, as with most texts, AI is morally neutral. Yeah, fantastic. That's a term I keep using as well. I use the same thing to compare it to cryptography. We can protect our credit cards. It can protect people talking about terrorism. It's all going to come down to how we decide to use it. It's maybe more productive with code output. It's even started asking if I want to produce tests. Yeah. But shouldn't the AI be able to test it without writing tests? Marek says the agentic coding tech is likely to replace many junior dev jobs, which is going to hurt the industry in the future if experienced devs have no replacement. I think the question is, and this will change over time, what is the baseline of human involvement that we need in order to actually produce software? I remember back in the day, and probably going back 15 years, my boss at Pfizer, who was a lovely guy but not particularly technical, was convinced that we wouldn't need developers anymore because we had SharePoint. Now I can hear you laughing. And I was having a different reaction in the late noughties to that sort of attitude. The truth is that it did take away some of the dev work, but clearly it didn't replace developers. And I think it's going to be the same thing here, where you're going to need a baseline of understanding in order to find the correct use cases. I think that there is way too big a gap between non-technical people prescribing, my video stopped again, non-technical people prescribing business requirements, and then the computers via the AI actually generating it. I don't think we're going to be able to fill that gap in the foreseeable future, if ever. There's going to need to be people in the middle who can find those right tools for those right jobs. That's my view. James is playing with Google Jules for code. It's cool. I haven't heard of that one. That's cool. Can't remember which one, but someone told me they liked one model because it didn't do that. Alistair says the bar is half of everything, including software devs, is below average. Well, strictly speaking, half of software devs are below median, but pedantic, isn't it? Wayne says AI code, consuming AI generated code means quality will degrade. Well, smarter AI people than me will have a better take on this, but if we look at it through the lens of AI is able to replicate human thought process, then by that logic, does humans consuming human-generated code mean that the quality will degrade. Can it learn like a human? James says some camera companies are building cryptography into the cameras to sign footage. Okay, sounds reasonable. Stephen experimented with Copilot to get it to build a Docker build on GitHub Actions. It's been enlightening and mostly useful. And I think this is the thing, right? Like we're all finding our way with this in terms of what is useful, what is productive, what is actually helping us. But we're all finding barriers, right? Like we're all finding times over and over and over again where what AI is generating is just not going to work for various reasons, which is a good segue actually into going deeper down the IoT rabbit hole, which is the last point I had, because I have been using ChatGPT tends to be my AI of choice. I've been using Grok for a few things as well, and obviously Copilot. I've been using ChatGPT a lot to help me build Home Assistant automations and scripts and things like that. Now, I'll give you a good example of this. This is something it literally solved for me just this week. I have a lot of text-to-speech in the house because there's a Sonos just there on my shelf. And we've also got in-ceiling Sonoses downstairs, and the kids now, as part of the reno, have got Sonos sound bars and things. So we've got speakers in every room. And we usually have them there just to play background music. Obviously, I don't have it here now, but we live and work here. I like a bit of, it could be anything from background jazz to Eminem. It depends on the mood. But it also means that they're all here. They're all joined in a Home Assistant. We have text-to-speech output devices in every room. So I wrote this blog post the other day about how we're using ChatGPT AI to look at a photo when someone puts a letter in the mailbox and then sort of describe what it is, etc. We also use it for things like we've got an automation where if the sun sets and we've left the garage door open, then we get an alert. And that's super, super handy, and it speaks. And I've been using Home Assistant's text-to-speech engine, and it's just it's a bit jaggedy and a bit not human enough. So, in fact, we might see if we can run this here. One of the things that I found, I want to say last year, was 11 Labs. Now, 11 Labs does really cool human quality text-to-speech audio. And if I get this right in a moment, you'll hear what it actually sounds like. And I really wanted to get 11 Labs as the engine for text-to-speech in the house. But I had this problem, and I'll pull up the script here. I had this problem where I just couldn't get it to do what I want. And what I wanted, namely, was when I go down to my, I've actually called it Hunt TTS. My script here says it targets, so there's an entity, which is the media player to play it on. And then what it does is it obviously sends the message. So here's the message, convert this to speech. It gives it extra volume. So if we've got that background music playing, I had it so that with the Home Assistant text-to-speech engine, that background music, when I played, would automatically just lower a little bit, and then the sound of the text-to-speech engine would be a little bit louder. And it was perfect, but I could not get that to work with 11 Labs. And the other day I was like, okay, it wasn't working last year with me trying to write the code. Let's ask the AI, and it nailed it straight away. So let me see if I can actually get this to play now. If I go into my actions, here we go. Ooh, yep. Let me just see if this short message plays on my Sonos.
Hey there.
Right. Now let me just copy the text that was going to be in this week's update. If I go to my profile on X, and I'll copy that text and I'll put it over here and I'll paste it into there. All right, let's see if this works. Have a listen.
Going live with my weekly vid in 20 mins, building the Prusa Core 1, Pwned passwords passes 16B monthly requests. Going deeper down the IoT rabbit hole.
How's that? There you go. So now that's the Aussie one, of course. I think with 11 Labs, you can actually create your own voice based on your own voice. That would spin the family up, wouldn't it? I wonder if I can do that. I'll pay for that. I would absolutely pay to do that. Where are the voices? voices in 11 labs. What's new? Voices, organized voices, trending voices, my voices. Create or clone a voice. Voice design. Design an entirely new voice from a text prompt. Instant voice clone. Clone your voice with only 10 seconds of audio. You need to be on at least the starter plan. Oh yeah, this is where my time goes. back to business. Where were we? That was a useful thing from the AI. Home Assistant, I do find can be a little clunky to wrap your head around. How do I, everything from structure my YAML, which is what all of this is written into, through to what is the relationship between devices and entities and attributes, and how do I get this? I've just found it really, really useful for giving me a good head start in that direction. Doesn't do everything right straight away, but stuff like that, I'm very happy with. It's solved a bunch of problems for me. Where'd we get to here? Something about Bigfoot. I don't think Bigfoot's real. Yeah, what do we believe anymore, right? We've always had that problem. It's just much more convincing now, and anyone can create, fake stuff. James says, maybe I will always be 5 years away from taking a job, just like Fusion is always 20 years away. Yeah. Aaron, how do I know that Troy is an AI? Jeez, if I could AI me, I could be out of my jet ski right now instead of sitting here talking to you guys. David says, AI doesn't replicate thought. That seems like a much deeper comment than I am equipped to properly comment on. Aaron's thinking I'm thinking AI would develop to be specialists. So IoT robot devices will be custom AI and not general things like ChatGPT. Maybe they will be. Maybe they will be domain-specific LLMs or something to that effect. And I'm sure that exists already. Stephen says, Azure's text-to-speech is really good. Maybe my UK speakers talk with a nice Aussie accent. When I did the opening keynote at NDC Oslo last year, I used, I can't remember what tool it was, but it created an AI video of me speaking Danish, which I played to the Norwegian audience just to mess with them. And it looked really convincing because it wasn't just the audio, it was the video as well. It's pretty wild. James played with 11 Labs. It was so impressive in a video I watched that I had to look them up. Yeah, right. Okay, so that's my job now. After this, I'm going to pay them some money because I have some more now. Thank you, LinkedIn. And I'm going to see if I can get it to train my voice. That would be good. Be fun. Yeah, Stephen says that's fairly good text-to-speech. I would argue that the way I wrote that that tweet was not particularly conversational. Let's get another piece of text. I'm looking at my blog here, I will take one sentence from that blog post. We'll drop that into the actions just here in Home Assistant. Let's play that.
One of my fondest memories as a child living in Singapore and now as an adult visiting there is the food.
That's pretty good, isn't it? It is actually really, really good. Now, when I can get that to actually sound like me as well, that's going to spin them out. That'd be fun. What I'd like to work out with Home Assistant, if anyone knows how to do this, let me know. I would like to be able to have my Ubiquity doorbell actually have a two-way conversation. We can do the text-to-speech. I'd like it to be able to do the speech-to-text and feed that into an AI engine that we can give some training to. Now, I am conscious of all the possible, well, I'm probably conscious of some of the possible negative outcomes of that, but it does seem like fun, doesn't it? Marek has a POC of a web-based game developed with AWS Bedrock where the author wrote no code, just instrumentation and prompts. Impressive, though I'm highly skeptical about code quality performance. Yeah, and I mean, as we discussed, it might have security-related issues that are not necessarily like SQL injection, but they might be like unauthorized access things. It might be, well, actually, when you're logged in as this person, you shouldn't be able to do that other thing. So, yeah, who knows? There could be other problems there. James says, next video, we want to hear AI Troy. Okay, mate, well then that's my job. It could be great for people with disabilities to be able to speak again with their own voice. And this is, I think that it's a very nice way to start rounding this out, because that's a very positive application of AI, the ability to give people, like literally give people back their own voice. But, you know, when I started thinking about it yesterday, I was like, if I put my own voice on this and I die in a tragic jet ski shark related incident tomorrow, and then Charlotte's at home and someone rings the doorbell and she's hearing my voice over the speakers, I don't know, like, is that a good thing or a weird thing? But yeah, it's wild, isn't it? Miracle, no, I'm AI when I start spruiking crypto. Yeah, not going to happen. If the AI is smart enough, it would know I'd never do that. Steven said, the way it said food at the end was interesting in a good way. Play that again. How did it say food?
One of my fondest memories as a child living in Singapore, and now as an adult visiting there, is the food.
Is the food. Yeah, like it's conversational, right? One more time.
One of my fondest memories as a child living in Singapore, and now as an adult visiting there, is the food.
I'd argue that there's not enough kind of inflection in the voice. There's not enough ups and downs. It's a little robotic. But let's see what we can do with 11 Labs. Now, I assume with 11 Labs, if I pay the money and I train my voice, then I can use that as the model, which is then relayed to Home Assistant. I hope. Let's see. Lance says, next video, watch for Troy to keep talking as he drinks his coffee. I'm drinking and the voice just keeps coming out. David says, maybe have something outside HA that handles the doorbell conversation, but get it to report state and expose controls to HA. Possibly. I did see the other day Ubiquiti has launched a new Pro doorbell, which looks really, really sweet. So maybe that's a good excuse to play with that and integrate some more AI. Last thing, because it partly just made me think of it. I want to, at Halloween, last Halloween, I did some, in fact, it wasn't even text to speech. It was some Lenny Troll stuff, talking when the kids rang the doorbell, and then an IoT valve on a water hose to squirt the children, because it is trick or treat. I chose trick. I would like to figure out what to do this year. I will be away for Halloween, so announcement of upcoming travel things. Charlotte and I will be off to Oslo later next month. We're going to do an offsite with Stefan and catch up there, and then on to the Netherlands, where I'm going to speak at the Intercop event put on by Europol. So two very, very familiar places. Obviously, Charlotte being from Norway and us spending a lot of time there, me having lived in the Netherlands before, and it's a place I really enjoy going back to. So I don't think we'll do anything public in Oslo. We'll share some photos with Stefan, but if you're in the Netherlands, and particularly if you're in that law enforcement arena, we'll be at Intercop, which sounds pretty cool. All right, folks, I'm going to wrap it up there. I'm literally going to go and train my voice right now, because it says it only takes 10 seconds of audio, and I really want to see what this sounds like. So I'm definitely going to be able to play that to you next week. See you later, everyone.